Welcome to the Massy guys. We are finally back again for the very first out of 2 reaction videos I'll be dropping yet again today on this here, the one and only Mystelics reaction, guys, brothers and sisters. Of course, the next one will be the first comment in the comment box, guys, so you can definitely check that out right there. And of course, big up the Mystelics YouTube family who have definitely tuned in to these here vibrations, and the newcomers who are peeping in. Come on in, guys. Come on in. This is where I give my views on a number of things, pretty much pertaining to that of the Caribbean people and of course the diaspora by extension. But of course we're dealing with that of Dominica here today on this vibration. So definitely come in, guys, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that post notification so you can get all the videos as they tend to come through. Click subscribe, click the bell, and then click all so you'll be notified when I drop my videos right there and then. And of course give this video a thumbs up. One time I click the I do the snap outside. Snap it one time. Click the thumbs up button, brothers and sisters, to make the vibrations easy for you guys to get on the vibe, to get on this here reaction vibrations right there, guys, to help the algorithm push your videos further and further. Anyways, guys, let us get into the meat of the vibrations, pretty much pertaining to that of electoral reform. And of course, Cabral Douglas, before we get into that clip, Cabral Douglas, where is it? This is it right there, brothers and sisters. Cabral Douglas had an interesting take to say when it comes down to the press conference that was released. I suspect I need to go to the press conference because I'm seeing certain things that should be asked, and I realize, hey, Mystelics, I'm in the building now. So I think I need to go to the press conference right there whenever they're having it, as time permits me to do. Time is of the essence. But we will see how that goes in the near future. Anyways, guys, let's get into the vibrations of what Cabral has to say right there.
Greetings to all my beautiful Dominica family and friends. Cabral Douglas here.
Wait, your audio is kind of muffled. Let me see if I can fix that.
Greetings to all my beautiful Dominica family and friends. Cabral Douglas here. Happy Black History Month. And I was looking at the...
Oh, it's February. Well, we have Black History Month in Dominica now. We black already. Holy is Black History Month for us.
Press conference conducted by the Prime Minister of Dominica, which he undertakes every 2 weeks. And he was addressing the issue of electoral reform. And it seems like the media assembled were fast asleep during the presentation because they seem to miss the part about the Prime Minister meeting with Sir Dennis Byron.
No, guys, from the clip that I got, I didn't get to see that part. However, there's another part where Matt asked the Prime Minister a particular question, and we're going to get into that as well. Anyways, let's continue.
I did not hear questions asked such as, was the leader of the opposition in attendance at the meeting?
That's a good question to ask. Definitely.
Such as, was the Electoral Commission, who has the responsibility of conducting elections in Dominica, in attendance at the meeting?
So was the Prime Minister the only one who was at the meeting with Dennis Byron? I mean, if you want electoral reform, it's not just the Prime Minister coming and say, however, I did hear Dennis Byron in a letter, I think it is, where he was stating that he met with some of the I guess it's over Zoom. He met with the opposition. He met with a number of the stakeholders, and 2 of the individuals who are part of the electoral commission were not there. The main individuals, they were not there. So they were invited, but they were not there. From my understanding of that particular statement made by Byron, well, not Byron, but by the I think it's the president. Who had made that statement? I can't remember, but somebody made this statement in this regard, and the 2 individuals, the 2 people in the electoral commission were not there at all. So the big question here is, did the Prime Minister have to meet with him by himself, or was there a contingent of individuals who had to actually meet with him, and it was only the Prime Minister that had a secret meeting with him? Because that's some good question right there. Were these individuals there?
What role did the President of Dominica play in the meeting, considering that he is the person mandated by the Constitution to appoint electoral commissioners?
So I'm guessing that the president was also there. Okay. The big question I want to ask though, guys, is did other folks know this, or did the Prime Minister just come and say that he met with these individuals? And that is why these questions have been asked, and I think these questions are relevant on the basis of, was it a secret meeting that they had, or was anybody else invited and they did not show up? But the big question here is, were these individuals involved in the meeting? I think we need answers of to this. I think the journalists who were there should have asked these questions right there.
I do not recall him appointing Sir Dennis, and I'm not aware of any provision in the Constitution that provides for the appointment of an electoral commissioner? So these are all questions that you'd expect.
That's a good thought process right there, because who exactly, he stated that the president is the one who is supposed to be doing this. But was the president the one doing this, or was it the prime minister? Because remember, in elections of 2019, the prime minister was stating that he is going to be appointing somebody to do it. Who gave the prime minister the right to do this? I mean, he said after 100 days he's going to be appointing people to do these things, and then of course they spent about $450,000, and then an additional $200,000 apparently. So who exactly is by law the ones doing this? Then again, it still comes down to mind. I'm thinking that the president is not necessarily Dominica's president. This is my point of view, guys, from my understanding of how he was brought in. Of course, we knew that he was on the DLP side. Charles Savary was on the DLP side. They merged together to form the government. That's what overthrew the UWP team, and they merged together. Now he's the president, who is supposed to be acting impartial to either red or blue or green or purple, whichever, which is a conflict of interest on the basis why Charles Savary is the president of Dominica. He should not be, because he was a political leader who was also in government on the side of the DLP team. So obviously there will be a bias when it comes down to you know, and how he was appointed as well. There was not much time given for the other people to. It's a whole kind of confusing state of affairs, brothers and sisters, if you remember properly how it went. Anyways, let's continue.
The media to be asking the prime minister at this crucial juncture, after such a long campaign over the question of electoral reform, and the various bodies like the CCJ, like the OAS, like CARICOM, condemning the electoral process in Dominica to the extent that the CCJ has stated in their obiter dictum that no election should take place because of the various taints in the electoral process.
True.
Did anybody ask the prime minister how he intended to address those taints?
That question didn't even come to my mind, you know. That question did not even come into my mind, but that's so true right there.
Did anybody ask the prime minister?
I think since there's a press conference and they're planning to do this every 2 weeks, I mean, that would be the ample time to ask the prime minister these questions. But I remember when I met the prime minister, I confronted him himself in Portsmouth, and I asked him 2 questions. He didn't answer. He wanted to play some kind of, I need to go them. I need to go them press conference. So
how elections could be free and fair when the taints identified by the CCJ were never addressed prior to the December election?
True. That's a good question to ask. How do you go forward? What exactly happened? Explain to the people how there was elections without electoral reform, even though he stated that. As one of the questions I would definitely ask. Mr. Prime Minister, you stated in 2019 that there was going to be electoral reform before elections. Now, in the 2022, there's another elections. How do you justify what you stated? And then moving forward, how do you justify, you know, us accepting what you are saying as truth to be true in the near future? That's one of the questions I would ask.
So these are the questions one would expect the media to be asking. As the fourth pillar of democracy, we have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, we have the judiciary, but then we have the media, who has to scrutinize and analyze and ask the questions and provide the answers in order for the public to be sufficiently informed and aware.
Because it's not the public that's asking the questions, it's the journalists that are asking the questions, and therefore they ask the questions in terms of what the general public is thinking. I think that is what real journalism is about. And don't get me wrong, they ask a few questions and whatnot, but did they ask the pressing questions? That is what I think would have been necessary.
Of what is actually taking place. And it appears to me that the Prime Minister of Dominica is deliberately attempting to sideline the newly appointed leader of the opposition, as well as the Electoral Commission, in order to secretly conduct and concoct with Sir Dennis an outcome that will only be favorable to him.
Now the big question here is, since the opposition did not run in last elections as a result of no electoral reform, and there's a new opposition, quote unquote, who will be in parliament who just, well, then again, I guess it goes on the basis of the laws of Dominica, who runs as opposition, who is the official opposition, or whatever, because a few independent individuals went out, 2 individuals went up, and they are not necessarily the official opposition, so to speak, when it comes down to the candidates on the paper. But then again, anybody can go up and put their name and stuff, as long as they have the $500, and they have 2 people who think them and they can go on the ballot paper. It's an interesting scope. So who exactly are they going to say, okay, we need to invite Dr. Thompson Fontaine as the leader of the United Workers Party team? Who do we invite, or who do they invite when it comes down to the opposition and thing? I think that's an interesting question to ask. But they are officially an opposition team. They just did not contest this last election as a result of no electoral reform promised by the very Prime Minister. He's talking about electoral reform. We're gonna hear him in a moment.
And only he will be privy to, in order to continue to subvert free and fair elections in Dominica.
Yep.
This is Cabral Douglas from Sydney, Australia, signing out. Peace, and have a wonderful day.
Guys, what are your thoughts on what he had to say right there? Anyways, let's get to the actual press conference. And this was Matt asking him a question on electoral reform.
I need to ask and go back to a question that you sort of answered as it relates to electoral reform. You used the word modernization in your last news conference. Can you seem to want to explain a little more about that?
It's a good question, but is it relevant based off what actually took place? I don't think that's it. However, it does make a little sense when it comes down to the modernization of the elections, modernization of the electoral process. Now, if that is the case, doesn't that mean that there needs to be electoral reform before you modernize the process? Or is it in part the same thing? Is modernizing the electoral reform the same? No, is modernizing the electoral process the same thing as electoral reform? Because there are laws guided that certain things need to be had, so that free and fair elections is done. It's very clear that in Dominica, I mean, the CCJ, I mean, all the people who have common sense, everybody who knows what's going on in Dominica will tell you that the elections were not free and fair. Especially understanding that it maybe didn't happen. Was bribery and cheating the main thing? I don't think that happened. No, yeah, of course, giving people $300 all over the place is treating. So the treating did continue. Treating did continue as a result of the 2022 elections. You're treating people with $300 so that they can vote for you. Or you bribing the people with $300 so they can vote for you, whichever way you want to look at it. But I more think that is more bribe than treating. Treating might be indirect, like bringing people in concerts, and then the people in concerts who you are fans of come in and say, hey guys, we need to vote for the DLP team in the next election and this kind of thing. So I think that is treating as well. So most likely was looked at as bribery. So I think the question of whether is modernization part of electoral reform, or is it the same thing? Anyways, let's continue. Listen to what the Prime Minister is saying.
The modernization of electoral process, I think there's a better terminology to use. The reality is the vast majority of Dominicans believe that the system that we have is okay.
No, it's not. The vast majority of Dominicans believe that the system is okay. So why did the opposition boycott? And there was the record-breaking no voter turnouts last election. If they believe that, then wouldn't that there be a record, even though the other team did not go up? But I mean, are you delusional or something?
And has worked.
It has worked in your favor. It's very clear it has worked in your favor. Even Anthony Astafans, or Tony Astafans, whichever you want to call him, stated in a letter that if you do electoral reform, it'll go against your re-election legacy. And now you're talking about being free and fair, and everybody know bribery and treating people, getting how much money, all kind of things, houses, all kind of things if they vote for you. There's students, their people might get scholarships and so forth. I've heard people saying that, you know.
Over all our elections there. But with the passing of time, with the access to technology, that we need to come up with the time with times.
But there's a difference between coming up with the times and not having electoral reform. You kind of want to come up with the times to make the voting. Okay, you need to will go and vote on your computer and whatnot. But there's no electoral reform. There's no cleaning of the voters list. There's none of these things taking place. So on the basis of that, what exactly is he pointing out? This is why I'm asking the question: is modernization of the electoral process the same thing as electoral reform?
And so it is not that we are taking the entire system and getting rid of it. We're basically seeking to modernize what we have. So the issue of a national ID card.
Voter ID card is necessary, not necessarily national ID card.
You know, we feel biometric data on this card that you can present when you go to vote. That kind of thing.
Do they scan the card to know if it's you? They got biometric data, you just have to present it. This is me, and roll out.
Computerizing the whole system, for example.
Isn't there a possibility that they could cheat the system because it's on the computer? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, if you understand how things are done properly, there has to be a monitoring agency of this sort to know if people would tamper with it. Because then again, you go on the computer and you vote, and then you put your X somewhere. Next thing, they decide, hey, we want that person to win, so let us change that X and put it somewhere else. I mean, you can do that digitally, yeah. So, is it gonna be helpful in that regard? That's another question right there.
You know, so it's really a modernization process.
So it's electoral reform. You need electoral reform. It's on modernizing the process to go and vote. Electoral reform is needed, and part of that has to do with declaring out the voters list. That is a fact.
Rather than with electoral reform, because you're not fixing a broken system.
It is broken, sir. It's very broken. You come in and say it's not broken doesn't mean it's not broken. The fact it is, it's broken. This is why the opposition didn't go in the first place. This is why we have been constantly winning and doing all kind of things. Who know what Coco Macaque is going on? There have been names even in last election 2022 there, where people brought the voters list and put it on here and said this person has passed away. What are their names still doing on the voters list? I mean, come on.
Not broken. You're really seeking to modernize it. I mean, the reality is,
you're trying to modernize a broken system.
You and I will agree that we've always had free and fair elections in Dominica.
No, what?
That we've always had free.
No, I maybe I don't hear properly.
Modernize it. I mean, the reality is.
The reality is.
You and I will agree.
You and I will agree.
That we've always had free and fair elections in Dominica.
Always had. Really? How can we have free and fair elections when there's ample evidence that the voters list is corrupted, that there's bribery and cheating going on? How can there be free and fair elections? Even CCJ, the Apex thing, reported that there are a lot of taints in the elections. There are a lot of taints. How can there be free and fair elections when there are a lot of taints? Shouldn't the taints be rectified? Somebody should have asked him that very question right there. Concerning the taints, Cabral Douglas brought it up. Concerning the taints that the CCJ reported as a result of the elections in Dominica. Why hasn't this been rectified? You promised that you were going to do electoral reform. Why hasn't this been rectified since the last election?
And the people of Dominica have been able to express their will at every elections in Dominica.
Bringing in people to come and vote for you doesn't mean the people of Dominica express their will, you know. Don't get me wrong, you know. The majority of Dominica, let's say 55%, wants the government to change. All the government has to do is bring in 10% of people to come and vote, you know, from outside. And that has happened. We remember the amount of planes that we saw coming in Dominica. I want to pretend as if that was normal. A set of chartered planes on Melville Airport. And we want to pretend that these things didn't happen. Come on.
Dominica. Every elections, you know, and this has been the case.
This has not been the case, sir. You come in and say it's the case because it was in your favor doesn't mean it's the case. Facts don't change, or reality doesn't change, truth doesn't change because you want to say is the case. It's not.
There has been talk about the list being too large, and we have to verify who is on the list to see where they are and so forth. The issue of the national ID cards for.
Also, you know that part. You know that is a fact. The voters list has more people on it than the Dominican population itself. The voters list. And that is including women, children, and well, it's adults and children. And those who are not there, talking about the population in Dominica, you know, guys. The population in Dominica is allegedly 70. I think it's about 55,000, 60. But hey, they say 70,000. The voters list is about 82,000. So 70,000 includes women and children and adults and children in there. If that be the case, children can vote. Yet still you have 82,000. Where else on the Antigua released their own recently about the amount of people that was on the voters list is less than the population. All over you look at, the voters list is less than the actual population. How on earth is Dominica on more than the population? And there are ample evidence out there of that.
For voting purposes, the use of technology in the electoral process. So it really is to modernize it. You know, I mean, this is coming from...
They can cheat the system when they modernize it, guys. And I suspect they know about electoral reform. Hey, might as well see if we can get our people to tilt certain things. But there needs to be a watching body. There needs to be an observing body to watch this stuff so that nobody steals stuff. Because remember where it was in Marigot, where I was saying Carlos got back his deposit. Remember we saw the thing and then it just switched. Well, apparently a mistake was made. What if there was a mistake that was made on the thing, and when they checked the stuff, they switched everything. They switched everything digitally, which means they then have to go back to the actual copies to then check. But if everything is being done digitally, how then do you go back to actually check the actual thing? So that is a very interesting one to me.
Having the box TV that we used to have to a flat screen, your modernized television.
But this is a TV. There's a difference between having TV and writing. There's a huge difference. You can actually have the actual evidence right there. But if you go on the computer and people are typing in stuff, don't get me wrong, you know, guys. No, I think America does it, but they put their thing to scan. They have an actual paper and stuff. They put their thing to scan. Hey, who knows what is gonna happen if they're doing it on the computer? You go on your computer and put it in, or do you have the actual paper as well? I think it's an interesting one, man.
But you have not reformed television. I mean, you could still see
with our
television, but you have not reformed television.
So you have not reformed television. So you use a horrible example to try to prove your point. You cannot reform the television, but you can reform the process for people to vote. What you mean? So himself is so indirectly he's saying that he doesn't want the reform to happen. He wants the modernization of the process to happen. He wants the modernized. Guys, you have to keep that in mind, you know. You have to be mindful of what people are saying. It seems this is why I've been asking the question, is the modernization of the electoral process the same as electoral reform? Because look, he just said that you're not modernizing the television even after you're making the reference of using a box TV to a flat screen TV. So that is a very important thing right there. So they can continue their stint of stealing the elections.
I mean, you could still see, but it's improved. The quality is improved, but it's still a television. So you know, this is what it is, and so we're committed to this. As you know, we made the funds available to the Electoral Commission. It's a matter for us.
So where did $650,000 go? Somebody asked that question. Or is it still ongoing? Or is the process of what he's saying there ongoing? That is a good question to ask.
Now to pass the legislation and end the chatter about electoral modernization. And
nobody talking about electoral modernization. You are the only one mentioning this. You wanted to say end the chatter of electoral reform, but you want to switch it now to electoral modernization. That is not it doesn't appear to be the same thing. and it's very apparent on the example you gave there with the television.
Electoral modernized for us now to pass the legislation. As you know, we made the funds available to the Electoral Commission. It's a matter for us now to pass the legislation and end the chatter about electoral modernization.
Boy, I wish I was there, boy. If I heard him say that, my next question will be, so is modernization of the electoral process and electoral reform the same thing? Will there be a clearing out of voters list before we modernize everything? That's a good question to ask. I mean, guys, hey.
and now we can boast that we have one of the most advanced systems insofar as
it's not on the basis of actually making elections free and fair. We want to boast like we have the best infrastructure in the Caribbean. Boy, hey. Yet still police headquarters making farm in the front. Go and watch the front porch. You will don't see if it's not a modern thing inside there. Farm. Well, it's been a while since I've been there, but farm, I asked these people if they're planting crop in front there. Yes, sir.
The use of technology and the modernization of our process.
Guys, I hope people don't just swallow in whatever you see there and will be bamboozled by this. I hope people will understand the very definition of modernization and what it entails. Is it the same as electoral reform? Because I notice if people understand behavior, you'll notice it yourself. He was thinking of saying electoral reform, but he said electoral modernization. So most likely they might chatter something in Parliament where the term is now switched to electoral modernization. No, the people want electoral reform, and if they are not the same thing, sir, you need to stop your dirty ways. Anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in this regard. Leave your thoughts in the comment box below, guys. This is pretty much really bad for this here reaction video. Of course, he also mentioned something about his house, moving into a house and all. Hey, but it's something else. But I need to be at this press release, guys. Hopefully, I think they send me some emails and stuff, but they haven't been seeing me, you know. I've been back and forth all over the place, man. So yeah. Anyways, guys, if you want to stay right there, I'll see you guys in the next reaction video. Tune in for the next one in the first comment in the comment box below, guys. Anyways, boom, bam.